Welcome to my YouTube channel. In this video I'm going to demonstrate a technique for creating a test strip for black and white printing in Adobe Lightroom Classic. If you haven't already watched my previous video on black and white printing, I really suggest that you do that before going ahead with this, because I don't want to have to go over the simple features of black and white printing. I find that the best results for black and white are to be had from using the printer driver rather than using a colour managed printing workflow, which I would use for colour printing. Very different thing. Rather than go over that, please watch that other video before you go on with this. If you've watched the other video, then you'll have a pretty good idea what I'm talking about. The thing is, here what we want to try to achieve is the best balance between the image on the screen, which I've got here, this black and white image from Baker Street in London, and we want to get this replicated on as a print. So looking at, first option is looking at the soft proofing, and as I said before, really soft proofing doesn't have the same impact for black and white as it does for a colour image. So essentially, if we are happy at this stage with the on-screen display, the next step is to really make sure that the print is as close as possible to this as we can achieve. So to do that, it may be necessary to alter some of the settings. These can be altered in Lightroom or in the printer driver. But the key to that is to create a test strip of images where you can compare side by side the same image rather than printing full-size images and wasting a lot of paper and ink. The whole aim of the game here is to get the result at the least cost in terms of ink and paper. So let's go into the print module. We're assuming that this image is all set up, soft proofing is done, and the image is optimized. This is what we want in print. So over to the print driver. Actually, I'm starting in the wrong place. The first place to go to is the develop module. Let's take the soft proofing off. Don't need that any longer. So this is the image. In fact, this is the one that I want to work with. And the first thing I'm going to do is create a virtual copy. And as you know, virtual copies in Lightroom, very easy. These don't take up any disk space. They relate to the same raw file. It's just another set of instructions for the creation of an output file, image file, or print. So we've got a virtual copy, which means we're not going to be altering our original processed image, and we can play around with this without any worry of losing anything. This is all a non-destructive process. So the first thing I am going to do is I am going to create a cropped image, and this is going to look really bizarre, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to select a section of the image that I feel has all the tones that I need in this print. So in this area here that I have this narrow band of image, I have got the full range from the lightest tones right through to the darkest tones that are contained in this image. And we want to make this not too narrow but not too broad. So we're done there. So we have now created a narrow image. Right, well, what use is that? Well, we've got all the tones. So off we go into the print module, and there it is, and the print module has plunked it in the middle of our frame. And let's see what the settings are, because yep, we've got zoom to fill is off, and we have got a maximum cell size, which basically, to be honest, the width of the cell isn't affecting the image until we get really darn crazy, but so we leave that. That is not the concern. The thing I'm going to work with here is the margins, and if I use the left and right margins, I can move that image on the page. So that moving the right margin right over to the edge. I've moved the image over to that side of the page. If I bring that back and then I use the left margin, I can move the image to the other side of the page. If I go too far, you see it begins to reduce it, but I don't want to go that far. So, in the middle for the moment. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on the rulers and guides. And the real reason for this is I want to see the ruler. So we're going to start by moving the right margin and moving the image all the way over to the left. So we're going to leave it there. Okay, so make a note. So we're sitting on the 4 centimeter mark there. So the first thing here is, let's go down and have a look. So we've got media type set, we're managed by printer, print adjustments are off, and let's go into the printer setup. And I'm set up with the correct, I'm using a luster paper, so I've set up there, advanced black and white, and I want to look at these settings. Now, I previously said that for my printer, I prefer the normal setting here. It does tend to default to, I think it's dark or darker, but from doing previous test prints I find that normal is correct. So I'm going to start with normal, and that's really all I'm going to do. And I'm going to make a print then. I've got print preview marked here. Useful thing to do, always keep that on. It's the built-in braces. And I'm going to click OK, and I'll go click OK here. So there's the print preview, and it's going to show me that at the top of the page I am going to have this section of the image printed. Grand. So this is for A4. Is this I think this was an A4 sheet. Yep. An A4 sheet. So the next step would be to take the paper that we want to use, stick it in the printer, and then hit print, and it will print this image out at the top of the A4 sheet. Okay, that is done. So I'm just going to hit cancel. We'll just imagine that that has printed. So there is the image. So we can look at that and we can say, well, okay, is it light? Is it dark? How do I think it looks in comparison to the screen? And if I feel that it is, let's say for the sake of argument, so having reviewed that print, the next move is to move the image on the page. So what I'm going to do is go back to the margins, and I'm going to move the image over. So we want to move it over so that it is sitting about on the 4 centimeter mark. So I will move the margin, and the image will move across, and we'll just leave a little gap. So there we have the image moved, and we're ready to print again. This time we're going to change some of the factors. So if I feel that this image is too bright, I go into the printer setup, and I think it's better to work, since we're working with the printer driver, it's better to make changes here if that is possible. So I can change the toning here, and I can say, right, well, I felt it was dark, I can set it to light. And what I want to do is make a note then that the second image, just get a bit of paper, make a note. Your first image was the standard settings at normal, and then the next one you're going to do at light. Click OK, click OK again, click OK again, and again we get a print preview that will show that the image has moved. So we now take our initial page with the image printed at the top of the page, and we stick it back in the printer in the right orientation. In my printer it's top side down, and then we hit print again, and the second image here will print below the first, right beside it, so we can see. So having printed that, take that out and decide what other changes that you need to make. Again, first thing to do is let's move the image. So where are we on that image? We've printed to 7.5 centimeters. So let's bring the next one closer to 8 centimeters. Let's move the margin. There we go. And there shouldn't be any overlap there. And again, The next point is printer properties, and decide what change I want to make here in the advanced. Again, we tried the last one was light. Well, let's go darker, or just go to the dark setting. And you can work your way through these settings. If you feel that the changes aren't enough, then other settings can be used. The other area that you can make changes, let's just cancel out of that for the moment. The other place that you can make changes is here. I wouldn't advise, although you can do it, making changes within the develop module. Basically, the aim here is that you will have got the image looking the way you want it in the develop module. The aim at this stage is to get the print to look like that, not to change what's on the screen to match the print. That's sort of approaching it from the wrong way. If you've got your monitor calibrated and everything set, you really want to be trying to get the printer to produce what you're seeing on the screen. If you start messing about so that you have to produce an image that doesn't look right on screen to get a print that looks right, I think that's the wrong approach. Very much you want to be getting on screen exactly the image you want, and you want that on the print. So basically then you can make changes. You can make changes in the print adjustment here. You can adjust brightness or contrast. Now there's a number here. I have no idea what that number alludes to. I don't know whether 10 is big or 10 is small, whether 30 is big or 30 is small. No clue. And unfortunately, really, Adobe don't give us any clue as to what sort of a jump is appropriate with this. But again, you can try these settings of brightness and contrast. Again, moving the image with each change and making a careful note so that at the end of this process, you will have a printed image that will have a series of strips, all of the same part of the image at the same size and resolution. And it will give you then, hopefully, on paper, the changes that have been made, and you hopefully will be able to see the difference and be able to pick the one that is what you desire. And as I say, you just make a note of where the edge of the image is, and for the next one you move the margin. Where are we? We're on just over 11 centimeters, so we move that one, and we just move it to about there. Do another print, then move it again. Now we're stuck, can't move far enough, but that's where you start using the other margin slider, and you move the image on across, and so on across the page until you've filled the sheet with your different adjustments, noting each time on a piece of paper what each of the changes, noting down the changes that you have made with each strip. And I suppose if at the end of that you still haven't reached the desired effect, well then you take the best one and you start from there and you work further on a second one. But in this you should be able to get at least 7 or 8 strips, depending on its width, on one A4 sheet, using one sheet of paper and one print's worth of ink, rather than 7 or 8 sheets of A4 paper and 7 sheets worth of ink. It's particularly so if you've got a really dark image that's using a lot of your black ink. So that's the simple method of doing a test print in Lightroom and making adjustments for a mono print. I hope that is useful, and I hope that it helps you improve your printed output. So with that, I will bid you adieu and see you in the next video.